So we are here at week 6 of college football, and I guess you could say we are pretty much officially halfway through the season. And the season has not disappointed. I mean, there's been plenty of upsets and surprises and games that just went crazy and completely off the tracks. And like I said, we're right here at the middle of the season, the first weekend of October. So let's just kind of do like my quick little kind of overview, like I normally do on Saturday mornings about the games coming up today. So number 15 at Clemson travels to Florida State at Tallahassee to play them. Clemson's a 14.5 point favorite. They're 3-1. Florida State's 1-4. Clemson's probably going to boat race Florida State pretty well. It's no secret that Florida State's been having problems all year at several different positions. Primarily, I guess, quarterback, but they're making a quarterback change today with DJU being out and injured. So we'll see what kind of showing they have against Clemson. But 14.5 points, I don't think Clemson's going to have a hard time covering that. Number 8, Miami travels way out to the West Coast to play new ACC foe, Cal. Miami's obviously a 10 point favorite at 5-0, and Cal's 3-1. Um, we'll see. I think Miami's for real. I believe Miami's for real. I really like Miami's quarterback, and I like him as a high finalist for the Heisman Award. So again, Miami favored by 10. I'll take it, even with Miami being a road game. Well, this will tell about Miami as far as how they can do on the road, especially in a trip that far away. Now you figure they probably traveled, Wednesday, um, like a lot of other teams, but just having to travel that far and from Miami to the West Coast, what is that, about a 3 hour time change, give or take? So we'll see how they deal with that. But I like Miami on the road at Cal. A game that I'm going to be watching this morning that I did a preview on the other day, and I'll definitely do a halftime report. Number 9, Missouri at number 25, Texas A&M. And I didn't realize, kind of a side note, I didn't realize before last night, this week in the AP poll, we had two number 25 teams. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that before. Maybe y'all have, but I thought I had made a mistake there. And no, sure enough, I looked it up, and both Texas A&M and UNLV were ranked 25. So, but we'll see. So, but yeah, number 9 Missouri 4-0 takes off to Texas A&M at College Station. Like I said, Missouri's 4-0. Texas A&M only has the one loss to uh, Notre Dame. Excuse me, the one loss in Week 1 to Notre Dame. Missouri's coming off a bye week from Week 5. Texas. Now here's the deal: Texas A&M is a 2.5 point favorite, but Missouri is ranked higher. So what's the upset? Now, me personally, I put Missouri on upset alert because Missouri's higher ranked. So I would think a Texas A&M win would be an upset because the lower ranked team beat the higher ranked team. But in this case, the lower ranked team and the home team is the favorite, and that 2.5 point line has pretty much been consistent at least since Thursday or so. So, or actually Wednesday, I believe it was at around 2 or 2.5 on Wednesday. But I've got Texas A&M in this game. Missouri is really no secret, and I won't beleaguer the point too much, but I think Missouri's a bit overrated. I don't think they've really earned a spot in the top 10 so far this week. Now, yes, they are undefeated, and but here's the deal: your Missouri, the first two wins, yeah, blowout wins against lesser opponents, but week 3 and week 4, they struggled. They won the games, but Vanderbilt took them to overtime, actually 2 overtimes, and then the other game they played, they only won by 6 or 7 or so. So we'll see about Missouri, and I think we're going to see about Texas A&M too. Texas A&M should be going with Reed, so we'll see how they do how Texas A&M does at the quarterback position. But I've got A&M at home in this one. Auburn goes to Georgia. Georgia loses that game last week, and in any situation, I would feel sorry for the team that Georgia plays after a loss. In this case, it's a 2-3 unranked Auburn. Georgia, ranked number 25, has this game at home. Georgia's obviously 3-1 with the loss last week to Alabama, and Georgia's a 22-point favorite. And Alabama has quarterback problems. Peyton Thorne, he's probably going to throw as many interceptions as he's going to complete passes. Now that's overblown and exaggerated, but if and I don't even know if he's starting today or not. I don't see why he wouldn't. Hugh Freeze, if for no other reason, Freeze has been quoted as saying, we're going to go with Peyton Thorne because he's got more experience than their backup. I believe his name is Hank Brown. But we'll see. If Peyton Thorne is going to have a really bad issue throwing interceptions, Georgia's going to make him pay for them, and they've got the defensive backs to do it. So Auburn's gonna be in a pretty tight spot there at Georgia. The Georgia fans are going to get up for this one. Auburn Georgia is a very very long standing rivalry, especially in the SEC. So Georgia fans are going to get up for this one. I really believe they will. Like I said, with Georgia coming off that loss, they're going to be smelling a little bit of blood in the water, wanting to kind of avenge themselves, so to speak, because especially with the way they fell in the rankings, and now obviously Alabama went to number one, and Georgia fell to number five. So Georgia by 22, yeah, I'll take it. At least 3 touchdowns, maybe stack a fourth touchdown and a field goal on that. Now, don't be surprised if Georgia, in classic fashion, starts off slow, and and at halftime the game's either tied or Georgia has a 7 to 10 point lead at halftime. I still think that by the end of the game, Georgia won't really have a problem covering this one. So next, number 12, Ole Miss travels to Columbia to take on South Carolina. Kind of the same situation as the Georgia thing, maybe. Ole Miss is coming off that loss to Kentucky last weekend, where they really just kind of got embarrassed. That was a bad loss that did not look good. Ole Miss got pushed around up front along the lines of scrimmage. So, but again, Ole Miss ranked number 12. South Carolina's unranked. Ole Miss 4-1, and Ole Miss is a 9 point favorite going to Columbia. Now, South Carolina, uh, the one loss South Carolina has is to LSU, and you will never see me or hear me blame a win or a loss on the officiating. However, in this one rare instance, I'm going to say that officiating in the South Carolina LSU game played way too big a part in the outcome of that game. Now, I did do a video about that and shared my own thoughts about the direction they need to go with college football officiating, but South Carolina's defense was able to get to and affect the LSU offense. If South Carolina can do that to Ole Miss, and again, I said this in a preview video I did for this game the other day, if the South Carolina defense can effectively affect the Ole Miss offense, you run a really good chance of South Carolina throwing Ole Miss off their game plan. But we'll see. I think the first drive or two is going to tell the tale for this entire game. Really how Ole Miss's offense is going to do against South Carolina's defense. So the word is that South Carolina is going to have their starting quarterback again or back from the injury he took in the LSU game. He took a pretty good bump. It wasn't nothing serious, but they've been really careful. So, but he's supposed to be back. So we'll see what kind of shape he's in for this one. Ole Miss by 9. Yeah, this is a situation where that might be too many points. Ole Miss might get this win, but are they going to win by 9 or more? Maybe. And obviously, worst case scenario, if you're Ole Miss, you take this loss to South Carolina on the road. Does that push Lane Kiffin closer and closer to Florida, especially if Florida loses to UCF? We'll get to that one later, but that one's going to be good. It's going to be entertaining. That game has been called the Integrity Bowl for a couple of reasons. One of which, there I have been told, and this is probably just tongue in cheek humor, but does Vegas have a line on an over under for how many injuries Ole Miss is going to fake? And we'll leave that at that. Number one, Alabama travels to Nashville to take on Vandy. Um, Alabama's a 23-point favorite. In this, Alabama's going to win this game. Even if the score is even remotely close at halftime, Alabama will look up and be like, hey, the score's too close. Let's just go ahead and pour it on these guys and get out of here with a win. I am in no way calling for an upset. But 23 points might be about right. I don't see Alabama just completely blowing Vandy away. For one, they don't need it. And they don't need it for two reasons. One, because Alabama's already number one. They've already proven what they need to prove, at least up until this point of the season, by beating Georgia. And two, it's a Vandy. Um, Alabama's not going to get any more respect for beating Vandy by 30 than they will by beating them by 14. So at that point, it really just kind of gets ridiculous. And, if Alabama just explodes on Vandy and wins by 30 or more points, they're going to run the risk of catching some criticism. But I get it. Tennessee has been in those situations before where they end up blowing the doors off a team, because at the end of the day, you got to play the game. You got to play the game for 4 quarters with the players you've got. Now, yeah, Tennessee's done some questionable things in some of the games they played this year, but Alabama wins the game. They more 9.5 times out of 10. Yeah, I think they're going to cover the 23. Um, Here's Vandy, and I am not a moral victory guy. I'm not. I like the game for what it is. Teams win and teams lose, and especially now with the playoff system and everything we've got to go with it, you shake everything out at the end of the season. However, if you are Vandy, is it a moral victory or a victory in any way if, even though Alabama beats you, Alabama doesn't cover? If Alabama wins by less than 23, is is that in any way any kind of victory for Vandy? Vandy has surprised some folks this year. They've played better starting out than they've done in years past. So Vandy's obviously not a team you want to just completely ignore, but Alabama's not gonna have a problems with this one. A lot of people are worried about and concerned about. Well, is Alabama going to have the hangover this week from all the emotional parts of the game from last week and everything else? And if they do, if Alabama has a hangover from last week, it won't last past halftime. That's my opinion on that. Number 4, Tennessee traveling to Fayetteville to play Arkansas. This one's this one's going to be a good one too. Everybody's saying that Arkansas is a trap game for Tennessee, and I don't see it. Yeah, Arkansas has won most of these games going back a lot of years, but that is not the Tennessee team that is going to be on the field today. That is not the Arkansas team that is going to be on the field today. Like I said, Tennessee's ranked number 4. They're 4-0. Tennessee is favored by 14, and myself, along with a lot of other people out there, are jumping all over 14. It actually started at 13, um, or that's where it was a couple of days ago, and now it's at 14. That is 2 touchdowns. That ain't enough. Um, I personally believe Tennessee's going to open up the playbook and let this one go. Josh Heupel effectively, if not word for word, apologized to Nico 2 weeks ago for kind of containing him up and bottling him up a little bit, as far as just keeping it on the ground, just run the ball and run the clock. That kind of seemed to be the game plan, especially after halftime against Oklahoma. I don't think that's going to be the case today. Arkansas is going to have a better offense and defense, even though Arkansas isn't that great. They're going to be better. What they're going to see from Arkansas is going to be better than what they saw against Oklahoma. So Arkansas is 3-2, and Arkansas is fresh off of the Texas A&M loss last week in Dallas. So Arkansas had a week to kind of figure a couple of things out, hopefully. Tennessee's had 2 weeks. And again, as I said in a preview video, Tennessee's expected to have those two starting offensive linemen back. So yeah, I'm expecting Tennessee to kind of boat race Arkansas a little bit. With it being an SEC foe, an SEC opponent of generally the same kind of caliber as Tennessee. It's not like they're playing somebody in a group of five or definitely an FCS or whatever. So, Tennessee puts up a pretty impressive score on this one. I don't see any room for criticism because it's not like Arkansas is just so inferior, that they don't deserve to get some points put on them. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think Tennessee and Nico and that whole high speed, high scoring Josh Heupel offense is going to remind everybody who they are, because Tennessee's coming up on a pretty impressive run of home games coming up. Now they got Florida at home next week. That's really, I mean, that's going to be a scrimmage. There's really no way around that one. But then the week after that, they get Alabama at home. So you've got to know that Tennessee is gearing up now for the Alabama game in 2 weeks. Now, they're not going to look past Florida. They are not going to let the Florida game be a trap game and give Florida their third win in Knoxville. When, Tennessee after this weekend, I don't see why they wouldn't at least still be ranked 4. But regardless, it'll be a game worth watching. It'll be entertaining. Tennessee's offense is going to be entertaining, I think, more so than they were in the Oklahoma game. So that one will be a good one to see, and to see how Arkansas bounces back after a loss. Like I said, Arkansas had the Texas A&M loss last weekend, and so we'll see how they do coming back off of that. Arkansas, like I said, Texas A&M loss. Then the only other loss they've had was several weeks ago, the overtime loss to Oklahoma State. So again, we'll see. And lastly, I was going to mention the UCF Florida game. UCF is 3-1. They're a 1.5 point favorite. Yesterday, they were a 2.5 point favorite. Goes to Gainesville to play Florida, and Florida's 2-2. And Florida has had wins over Samford and Mississippi State. I don't understand the Mississippi State win completely. No, it made Florida look good. Mississippi State, I think, is officially the new worst team in the SEC. They've got problems all over, and then on top of that, they ended up losing their starting quarterback. The guy was 30 years old, been in college for 10 years or something like that. But Mississippi State made Florida look like one of the best teams in the ACC. Florida ran and threw all over Mississippi State all day. Mississippi State was never in that game. Florida had it from the opening whistle, and it ended about the way it started. UCF's going to be a different story, even though this game's at home. Now, UCF is coming off the loss to Colorado, which, I mean, Colorado, like them or hate them, Colorado's a good team, and they've got some of the best players in the country on that team. Whether you agree with the way they act or whether you like their coaching or not, it really doesn't matter. Colorado is putting a good product on the field. UCF made a showing, but UCF couldn't run the ball. And UCF's been able to run the ball on everybody they've played. Then they hit Colorado, and they can't run the ball for nothing. UCF should be able to run the ball on Florida. UCF should be able to throw the ball on Florida too. Florida really can't do anything defensively, but we'll see. That one's going to be another game. I made this whole comparison the other day. If Lane Kiffin is still kind of at the top of the list for who Florida would want for their next head coach, how much closer does this push Lane Kiffin to Florida with a Florida loss and an Ole Miss loss? But a great slate of games today. I hope y'all enjoy them. Like I said, I'll be back for a halftime report from the Missouri-Texas A&M game. Y'all have a great day. Thanks for joining. See you next time.